Hi, this is Anthony Gibbs here. First of all, I want to say thank you for joining me and whatnot. And the purpose of this video, besides watching me fumble with my box here. Shut. Anyway, the purpose of this video is to delineate, break down a certain theory that I have, and my theory is, or maybe one might say it's a proven fact, because I admit I haven't found all the records and documents. I base my sources off of several documentaries about the city of Detroit in those times. One's by our prophet, for example, personal experiences of people I've spoken with there. I've also read books like for example, called Powder Burns, which is about Celerio Castro, and essentially his work as a DEA undercover person, as well as a frontline person down in the jungles fighting drugs directly in the early 80s. I also have read and been reading a book called Double Crossed by Chuck and Sam Giancana. Sam Giancana being the nephew and namesake of a Sam Giancana. So essentially, there's also well-known information and facts, books and documentaries on the mob working with members of U.S. intelligence agencies, later on working with the CIA. So I am very careful before I begin to tell you that I am not spinning a tale or telling some rumor. This is based upon fact. Now, people have specific things they want to bring up. I'm very happy to talk about those things and whatnot. I mean, I just ask you to do it civilly if you're going to attempt to really criticize such things. People calling me names and stuff and calling me a nigger and things like that. I'm not really going to take you seriously. So, anyway. Now, today, I'll begin with my theory, and that is this. The heroin distribution of the late 40s, 50s, 60s, and intensely in the 70s. I'll put intense here. Was a direct operation. I believe it's called a counterintelligence operation. When you do it domestically, I believe, or should I say, I'm missing the word. We'll just say a direct operation based in country, based in the U.S. And this direct operation was essentially to use drugs and the violence and the corrupting influence that they know these things will be, especially heroin. And concentrate the distribution of these things into poor and minority communities. And this is because the people who ran the CIA at this time didn't care about their fate. And later, it became, didn't want to see these groups gain a foothold. And what I mean by that essentially is in the 60s and 70s especially, beginning in the late 50s with the civil rights movement, you had a lot of people who were standing up now and they were saying enough is enough with the apartheid or like Jim Crow, whatever it is. Enough with getting paid peanuts. Enough. There was a large segment of population, and again, this is pretty well-known fact, that felt that basic rights in this country. I'm gonna close this damn thing. Aha. Anyway, that basic rights in this country were not there. And there was a distinct amount of inequality. So much inequality and so repugnant of inequality that large-scale groups of people felt like they had to do something about it. Now look here, I'm not going to start getting into what the motivation of it is, or is the communists pushing it, yeah, whatever. Communists pushing it or not, enough folks were like, yeah. So how it starts, well, it's the same analogy like this. I'm playing with matches in the forest. And I think the fire is out, and then it's a conflagration. They're going to have to put the fire out first before they figure out I was playing with matches. So anyway, and putting the fire out be more whatever than me playing with some matches. So the cause is not nearly as important as the situation, is what I'm trying to say. Now, let's see, where were we? Yes. So in other words, this is what I think it is. A direct operation based in the U.S. and the intelligence agencies knew that this was a likely result. But they also knew that this would be a lot of that. Skrilla, quiche, dough, bread, whatever you want to call it, cheddar, bucks, money. And the money made were pretty much, in their mind, worth causing these societal ills. And this also entails that basically, you know, the war on drugs is a way to keep a cartel, or should I say, keep it in the black market and then that money is not regulated, it's not taxed, and also you ensure the price is high, and you can profit from enforcement. And this funds police departments. And what do I mean by like profit from enforcement? I mean they can seize your shit. Alright, think about it. I come arrest you for something, right? And you're Mr. Big Drug Dealer. And you finally made it, Mr. Big Drug Dealer. And so you got house, cars, jewelry, furs, marble everywhere. You know, you Mr. Big. And I show up with a crew of flatfoots and I bust you. And I drag your ass in. I throw all that shit in front of the jury with the prosecuting attorney saying, that son of a bitch is a drug dealer. And off you go to prison. Well, since we have a little thing in this place, in this thing called search and seizure, well, you already been searched. Now they're gonna seize your shit. Because you can't make it as a drug dealer. Well, you know, at least not overtly. And the penalty for getting caught playing the game is losing your shit. Your house, your furs, your cars, all that shit, unless you can sit there and prove, hey, I made this because I am a successful businessman. And you can prove that, maybe you keep some of it. But you're losing a lot of it. And I suspect you're losing mostly all of it. Because most people who made it as Mr. Big Drug Dealer, you create businesses just to wash. And once they look at the books of any businesses that you use to wash, it'll be pretty clear that they aren't making any money. That's called forensic accounting. No. So, with all this in play, you also have the notion of the independent contractor. So, what does this mean when I say this, you know, as I'm talking about it? Drug dealers are independent contractors. Oftentimes, drug dealers, you know, are working with, it's just like any kind of business. You got the big supply, and you got the mid-level guy, and you got street dealer, and you have user. So, big supply guy sells his stuff to this guy who marks it up, sells it to this guy who marks it up, sells it to that guy. Then along with each markup is money. Right? You know? No different than I sell hot dogs, you know. I got a hot dog stand. And I buy my hot dogs from, you know, I need a lot of hot dogs. So I go to GFS, and I might have a deal with like the butcher, because I want the right kind of hot dogs. And then the butcher got them from the plant, or, shipping, or such. So that's what I mean by independent contractor. No different than I have my hot dog stand as an independent contractor. And why I bring this up is that we must start thinking in these terms when it comes to the war on drugs. It becomes what I'm going to tell you here next. Remove all judgments. This shit's about money. Skrill. All this stuff about Nancy Reagan, whatever the hell she said, got rest of her soul, doesn't mean a damn thing when it comes to that, baby. And you know that. And you know that. If that's out there, somebody trying to grab that. Each time. All right. So now, let's move over here. Well, he was up here, so we can mark this down. All right. He'll be testing that later. If I had a class. So, Detroit. Detroit. My hometown. So, how do we get to where we are now? Where everything is just foobarred. You can, but it's on the way up. We would even mark this off. We would say from the years, 2010. Foobarred on the way up, or even be kinder. It's Kwame bringing the Lions back to town. 22. Things have been improving. Even though there's been some up and down trends that time, things have generally been on the way up since this time in my estimation in Detroit. Kind of hit rock bottom touch. Maybe I'm wrong to argue my timelines. Please argue my timelines. I love arguing. That's why I'm divorced. Now, moving on. We start our story in the year 1940s, during World War II. All right. We got started here for a reason. Actually, maybe I should go ahead and erase some of this stuff here. Some of you guys, it might be a little harder to see over there. All right. Now, let's see. We'll start with 1940s. What was going on? World War II. And more approximately, the U.S. involvement was 1941 to 1945. Right? It was a U.S. overt involvement. We were messing around before, but it wasn't on the record. Or one could say the Lend-Lease program was Britain was kind of an overt act against Germany. Anyway, enough. People can argue any goddamn thing. All right. So, in NYC, got docks. As you guys know, New York is one of the biggest port of entries and exports in our country. I think it's the biggest one. And it was then, and as it is now. So, we are in a war. It's like 42, I believe. But don't quote me on that, because I'm not too huge on dates. Any jerk off can look up dates here. That's what happened. But there's so much more than that. So anyway, on the docks, a ship burns. There's 1,000 theories behind it. It was German saboteurs, it was the mob, whatever. But the whole point is, when this ship burned, people started to shit. It's on flat terms. And they went because, you know, because the government knew about the mob and knew that they kind of controlled the docks. And we can go into why organized crime would be allowed to control the docks, but that's all, oh my God, organized crime and labor. That is a whole other lecture, serious. Nevertheless, they had control of the docks. And then U.S. intelligence agencies of that time, you know, including U.S. Army Intelligence, Office of Naval Intelligence, went and made contact with the mob. Yay! And they told the mob, you know, if you look out for us here on these docks and make sure the docks stay tight and stay free of saboteurs, and there were saboteurs around, you know, they'll keep that in the favor bank. You know, there'll be a back scratch waiting. You're behind that big one. Mob said, sure, because the mob love feels like that. They love being dependent on my people. That's how they make their money. So anyway, they helped them through World War II. This includes things like Luciano had contacts on Sicily, and this, oh, that's right. Lucky Luciano. Salvador Lucania, his actual name, but you know, most criminals talk about, oh yeah, I have my government name and my street name. On the street, he's Lucky Luciano. So Lucky is in jail for pimping and various little ticky-tack crimes they kind of put in a big fat ball and threw it at him, and that shit stuck. So here he is, up in Sing Sing, or Dannemora, one of those places that's pretty hellish that you don't want to be up in. And they come to him, he helps out with this, along with other members of the New York mob, and Luciano is released at the end of the war, and deported. Right? All right. So now, it's 1946-ish to 1950. So, what's going on there? Well, during that time, you got a couple things. You got the French Connection. And you got opium from Southeast Asia. The French Connection were a Sicilians working with mob. The opium from Southeast Asia was Corsicans working with mob. Okay. And all of them had what in common? Okay. Now, you've heard of the French Connection. You've seen the movie and whatnot. Just to break it down to you again. Opium, French Connection is Afghani opium brought via Turkey to be processed in Northern Africa, in Europe, and then it is brought to, or then it's distributed worldwide. but mainly in the U.S. Because the U.S. like getting high. And we spend more money on high than anybody else. It's not even close. Look it up. Now, that's the French Connection. Southeast Asian came on, I think that was towards the, that was like 50s and 60s. But it really picked up, you know, during this time because of the Vietnam War. Analysis via the Corsicans, who had, you know, with Napoleon being one, they lost their freedom, and many Corsicans just spread around the French Empire. The French Empire included a big chunk of Southeast Asia. And a lot of Corsicans were straight up involved in like fighting against the Nazis in Vichy France, making deals here and there. And they also helped out with various things, like with various spies and kind of kept secrets. They did hits. It's kind of like Grand Theft Auto. And essentially, they ran dope. Let's erase food bar here on the board. They ran dope into U.S. and sold it to minority and poor people. Keeping you strung out. Now, we'll essentially erase this, because y'all know what we see on the rest of it. Y'all should by now. And if you don't, read a book. Now that brings us to Detroit. And in my little theory here. Now it's the 70s. These mobs have been bringing in stuff. Another part of the French Connection, and a separate thing, is the Pizza Connection. And that was a lot of heroin being brought in to people who own restaurants. It was shipped in like sauce cans. And a lot of those people were mob connected who received the heroin. Okay. So now, with all this heroin out on the streets, and it's the 70s. So what happened? You had the riots in 67. You had white flight, which was happening even before the riots. Which leads us to black power, or excuse me, black political power in Detroit. Chocolate City, CC, right? Isn't that what Frankenstein called him? Gotta kill you! Right? So anyway, a lot of folks didn't appreciate this whole CC business none too much. None too much at all. So leads us to, let me check the thing here, might be part 2. So we'll stop right here for right now.